News 8 special presentation, Dan Malloy and Tom Foley in Vote 2014, the final roundtable.
Hello and welcome to the final head-to-head appearance by the principal candidates for governor of the state of Connecticut. I'm News 8 Chief Political Correspondent Mark Davis, live here in our New Haven studios. There is less than 48 hours left until voters head to the polls to determine the next governor. So if you remain undecided, or even if you've made up your mind, the next hour should be helpful to you. Now, joining us this morning are the incumbent Democratic Governor, Dannel Malloy, and the challenger, Republican Tom Foley. Also with us is Susan Haig, the highly regarded Associated Press correspondent, whose reporting is widely read on websites and newspapers across the state. Today's discussion is a forum rather than a formal debate. We don't have any rigid rules here. Each candidate will be allotted however much time they think they may need to answer and respond to each question. And I'll try to keep things moving. If it seems like anyone starts to repeat themselves, I'm sure that's not going to happen. In addition to the questions from Susan and me, viewers' questions will also be included, those questions that you submitted on our website, WTNH.com, as well as to our News 8 cameras on the street corners and coffee shops around the state of Connecticut. All right, let's start with a question to Tom Foley. Incidentally, Tom Foley won the coin toss, so he'll get to speak last. Tom Foley, the Democrats and the governor have tried to make a big deal out of the fact that you paid no taxes for 3 years, federal taxes. Actually some of the questions we get come to people walking up to us on the street. A fellow said to me, he's in business, he understands business losses, that doesn't bother him at all. But he says he can't understand how you can market yourself to the voters as a successful businessman when you lost so much money.
Right. Before I get started, I want to thank you for hosting the conversation this morning. I also want to recognize my lovely wife who's here, Leslie, who's lived in New Haven for 4 years. So we're happy to be here this morning. Yeah, I think the governor's been very unfair. First of all, I've been a generous taxpayer in Connecticut. I've paid over $2.5 million in state income tax in the last 10 years in Connecticut. And I think for a public servant to be saying that I haven't paid taxes is inaccurate, and for somebody who raised taxes on people in Connecticut, it seems a little bit ingracious. So I've been a generous taxpayer here in Connecticut. I pay all the taxes that are due. My income comes in differently from most people. I don't earn a salary. I only earn income occasionally when I sell an asset that I've invested in and increased its value. So I have income in 1 year and then don't have income for several years. And so Governor Malloy always picks the best news for him, so he's pointing to years when I had no income and I didn't pay any tax because you're not required to pay tax when you don't have any income. But $2.5 million over the last 10 years is, I think, very generous and certainly a lot more income tax.
But you did lose a lot of money. I mean, a successful businessman doesn't lose a lot of money.
Well, I have to spend money in years when I haven't made money.
Right.
So that doesn't mean you're losing money over time. Obviously, if I'm paying taxes over 10 years, I've made money over 10 years.
Okay, I think we're having a problem with Tom's mic. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, let's take a break and change Tom's mic, and then you can chime in. We'll take a break right here, and we'll get the crew in here to get another microphone for Tom Foley.
It's up to you. Tell me. You want to check that? Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And then kind of just move a little bit as if you were talking while you're talking, just so that we can get whether it's short
1,
now.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. You
Dan
want to
Malloy,
check?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, just move around to make sure it's not hitting you.
How's that?
Yeah.
Give us a talk while you're doing this.
Dan Malloy, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Unless you're going
5,
to take
6,
a
7, 8,
swing.
9, 10. Is that all right?
Yep.
All right.
All right, welcome back. I'm News 8 Chief Political Correspondent Mark Davis here with Governor Malloy and Tom Foley. And we got that solved. Apparently his microphone was hitting his tie. It must be a Democrat tie. All right, so Governor, you heard the question before about him not paying any taxes. He lost a lot of money, but it's the way it works in this country. Why is your campaign making such a big deal out of it? You took deductions on your taxes.
Sure, absolutely. My wife and I, and Kathy's here, and my oldest son Dannel's here with me. My wife and I have filed joint tax returns for 32 years. During the time that I've been governor, I've paid an average of 25% in taxes on income. That's what we did. I think what's unusual about Mr. Foley in this situation is that he's not released his tax returns. He let some reporters look at it for a few minutes. He's never really even let anyone look at his state tax return. He's advertised himself as a successful businessman and yet hasn't had any income in 3 years. I think that's the issue. He's the only candidate for governor in the state of Connecticut in recent memory that hasn't issued or released their tax returns. And the whole idea of running for governor in the state of Connecticut and not releasing your state tax return is, I think, a little unusual.
All right, I think he's just knocked the ball into your ballpark here for a minute. So
I don't know why the governor doesn't want to talk about Connecticut's problems. And under his leadership, the governor raised taxes, the largest tax increase in Connecticut history. It's slowed the economy. It's cost families jobs. It's put people under the big squeeze. Under his 3.5 years in office, real private sector wages have dropped 10%. And he wants to talk about my tax returns. Listen, we have serious challenges here in the state of Connecticut. Connecticut needs better leadership. And I don't know why Governor Malloy doesn't want to talk about why he's hurt families and hurt this economy and why he isn't talking about what he's going to do if he's reelected. He has no plan for Connecticut. He hasn't said he's going to do anything different from what he's done, which has got us 1% growth in the economy and 10% decline in private sector wages.
I have a feeling you're going to want to respond to that.
Well, you know, Tom frequently makes up numbers, he's invented his own Foley math at this point. But let's talk about the reality of working class families. Tom Foley has bankrupted a company. 6,000 people lost their job. Tom Foley purchased a company, offered employees a 10-cent raise, and then ultimately walked away with $40 million after causing many people to lose their jobs. Tom Foley's actually moved jobs to Mexico. And now he's running for governor of the state of Connecticut based on his pro-business agenda. There's a real difference between Tom Foley and I. We've tried to make and are going to make Connecticut stronger. We've seen 70,000 private sector jobs created during the time that Nancy and I have been in office. That's a substantial number of jobs. It's not enough. But let's look on a year-to-year basis. It's 23,500 jobs in the last 12 months created. What we've seen is the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston at a conference predicted that Connecticut would gain another 25,000 to 35,000 jobs next year. When it does that, it will have recovered all the jobs lost in the Great Recession. We're making investments, smart investments in transportation so that we can compete. We're making smart investments in manufacturing that are allowing us to see real growth. In 18 to 23 months, Pratt & Whitney engines will be manufacturing more engines in Connecticut than they have at any time since 1983. And then finally, what I would say to you, and these are important numbers to focus on, last month in Connecticut, we saw the creation of 11,500 jobs. That's more jobs created in a single month than at any time since December of 1993. We've turned a corner and we're making progress, and I'm more than happy to spend the rest of the hour talking about it.
All right, now he's defended his record. I'm sure you have another volley, and then we're going to move on to Susan.
Yeah, Governor Malloy has to make up his mind. He just said I made $40 million, and this 2 minutes before he said I'd lost money and hadn't made any money. Make up your mind, Governor. You simply are making this stuff up. So listen, I'm very proud of my business record. Every company I've owned had more employees when I sold it than when I bought it. They were making more money and they had better benefits. So telling people things that aren't true simply isn't helpful to the discussion. But Governor Malloy is a career politician, and we're hearing him talk about things he's done. But he lives in his own unreal world because he doesn't realize that none of this is working. And now he's saying, trust me, these jobs are what? When are they going to come? Next year or the following year? Listen, the citizens of Connecticut are waiting, Governor. 1% growth. You say we had 11,000 jobs in September. Yeah, but if you take January and August put together, we lost more jobs than we made in September. And you said in August, when we lost 3,600 jobs, that, well, the number moves up and down from one month to the next. So now that you have a number you like, you're saying, hey, everything's fine. Everything is not fine in Connecticut. We've had 0.6% negative growth in the private sector, and we've had a 10% decline in real wages. People are feeling this squeeze. So many people feel that they can't afford to live in this state anymore. And Governor, you've contributed to that problem by raising people's taxes, slowing down the economy. You simply need to be more honest with the people of Connecticut.
All right, I'm sure we'll come back to this, but Susan's got, I'm sure, a follow-up question or something in regard to this.
Governor, year after year, personal finance magazines like Kiplinger's or Money, they always rate Connecticut near the bottom of the pack when it comes to a place to retire. Now, I know that you push to try to exempt parts of teachers' pensions from the income tax. It's going to be phased in. How about other people's pensions, and most importantly, how about Social Security? Because a lot of these other states don't tax Social Security.
So as we move forward in a growing economy with 70,000 private sector jobs having been created, let me remind folks that the reference to 3,600 jobs was actually corrected by the Labor Department, Federal Labor Department. We didn't see that job loss in that month. But as we see our economy coming back and revenues hitting targets, which is what they're doing, then obviously we want to back off some of the things that we had to do to balance the budget. When Nancy and I came into office, there was a $3.6 billion deficit. Since that time, we've seen 4 balanced budgets. When Nancy and I were sworn in, there was no money in the rainy day fund. $1.7 billion had been spent from the rainy day fund. Now there's $520 million in the rainy day fund. And yes, we've rolled back some of the taxes that needed to be raised to handle the largest per capita deficit in the nation. It was tough work to do, and it was hard for everyone. We asked for shared sacrifice, and the people of Connecticut responded really quite magnificently. But now what we need to do is bring tax relief to middle-class families. That's why I'm calling for a $2,500 deduction for college expenses from student loans. That's why we're building a student loan program that will allow us to refinance students' loans at a lower rate. That's why we've taken steps to exclude pensions and from taxation. All of that is work that's underway as I sit here. And with respect to the teachers, as you referenced, we have begun the process of getting to comparable treatment for them of Social Security.
But what about other people besides teachers? Do you expect other pensions, Social Security?
Absolutely. I think that with proper earnings or tied to income, we should move in that direction.
What do you think, sir?
I think the governor just said no to your question. We need tax relief in Connecticut to get the economy going. So many of the taxes that Governor Malloy put on people are not only slowed down the economy, but they're unfair. And none of them are more unfair than the taxes that hit seniors. I will eliminate the state income tax on Social Security benefits and teachers' pension benefits. I will take 0.5% off the sales tax. I'm going to reduce the car tax in cities like New Haven. It's an unfair tax. I'm going to reduce it about 28% in New Haven, 25% in Bridgeport, 60% in Hartford. We're going to eliminate the business entity tax, which sends the wrong message to small business people who create 70% of jobs, that we're not on your side. We're going to get government on people's side. And seniors are being squeezed. I would like to get a homestead type exemption where property taxes stay level once somebody retires and gets on a fixed income. I'll have to work with municipalities and cities to get that done. But I want tax relief in Connecticut. We need to do it to relieve the pressure on people, to be more fair, and to get the economy going. And I think the governor said he's not in favor of it.
Tom, I'll answer my own
Are you
questions.
going to eliminate the
well, let's talk about what we've already
state income tax on seniors?
Let's talk about what we've already proposed. We've proposed expanding the circuit breaker payment by 50%. for seniors.
That affects property taxes, right? Yeah.
Property taxes that seniors pay. This year, there are 12,500 more seniors receiving renter's rebate so that they can stay in their apartment where they live. 12,500 more seniors receiving that right now, this year already. We included an additional $6.5 million in that fund to bring that about. We're very proud of having done that. What we're also glad to have seen is a rollback, so over-the-counter drugs are no longer taxed, that no longer subject to the sales tax. So I just listened to Tom riff off there. What he really wants to do in some senses is he's telling us he's going to roll back taxes in many, many different categories. This is a whole new line of discussion that Tom has had, but he's not telling us how he's going to support education or how he's going to make sure that there are enough policemen on the streets in places like New Haven and Bridgeport and every one of our communities, or how he's going to assure that we have enough teachers in the classroom, things that we've actually done. You know, when Nancy and I came into office, we had to make some real choices. And one of those choices was, do we balance the budget by cutting teachers, cutting firefighters, cutting policemen, or do we make communities stronger and ask for a level of sacrifice with a promise that we would roll back those changes as things got better? We have kept that promise. We are, in fact, rolling those things back. But more importantly, what we're seeing is test scores in our school systems go up. We're seeing the state be the safest it's been in 45 years. We've seen a 32% reduction in the murder rate in the state of Connecticut, all because we made appropriate investments, including in transportation, which is so vitally important. Here I sit in New Haven in a studio. Just last month, we were able to announce an additional 6 trains leaving New Haven on a daily basis. So you can take a train up and down every half hour during Monday through Friday. Also, another 3 trains serving Waterbury. These are timely investments in the future. Tom keeps talking about things that have happened in the past. I want to talk about the future of the state of Connecticut as we create jobs and improve education.
Let's get back to Susan's question was about the Social Security being taxed under the state income tax. And I remember asking this question 20-odd years ago when the income tax was first signed by Governor Weicker. And the Senate president at that time, who is now your Revenue Services Commissioner, told me the reason they did that is because you do it on the bottom line on your 1040. It makes it easy. But at the federal level, you don't get taxed on that bottom line on the 1040. You get taxed on the amount on the second page, which allows for the standard deduction and other deductions. Why can't we do that here?
Yeah, well, actually, I've signed legislation, and there is a net neutral tax review going on. And quite frankly, I think we should go to that system. So I want to be very clear. I think that the intricacies of the Connecticut system are in effect, for some lower income individuals in particular, a penalty.
Well, Tom was nodding on that. I guess you agree with that too?
Let me be, the governor likes to say, let me be very clear. Let me be very clear. I will eliminate the state income tax on Social Security benefits and teachers' pensions, and I'd like to ask the governor if he will commit to do the same thing this morning.
Tom, I've already taken the steps to do it. When I proposed...
Will you eliminate
Tom, just 1 second, Tom.
the state income tax on Social Security benefits and teachers' pensions?
So, Tom...
Is that a yes or a no?
Tom, let's be a gentleman.
Is that a yes or a no?
Tom, let's be a gentleman, all right? So let's...
Sounds like a no, Governor.
So, Tom, let's try to contain ourselves for a moment, if you will. Why don't you tell the people watching today that I'm the person who proposed those things, that I'm the person
Well,
who
why
actually
won't you
had
say you'll do it?
I am doing it, Tom.
No, you're not doing it.
Tom,
Why don't
we
you
have
just say yes?
legislation in effect that's already doing the
Why
things
won't
that you say you're
yes?
for. So
Why don't you say yes then?
because I think you're missing the point, Tom. When I came forward with a treatment for teachers' pensions so that they would be treated the equivalent of Social Security, you blasted that. You blasted that as a political move. And now you're sitting 48 hours before an election, and you're behind in the polls, and you're throwing everything you can at the situation. I'm agreeing that we need to change our tax system, that it is too punishing on the middle class and lower income earners, including our seniors. And we should do everything in our power to make that possible, including going to the federal system. So yes, Tom, we're gonna go down that road together.
Governor, you promised that you wouldn't raise taxes in 2010, and several months later, you put the largest tax increase on Connecticut citizens. I've now asked you to make a commitment to our seniors who are getting squeezed, that you will eliminate the state income tax on their Social Security benefits. It's only fair. They've already paid taxes on it. It's come out of their payroll checks while they're working and building a retirement income. And today, you won't make that commitment, and you won't make the same commitment to teachers who've done the same thing and don't receive Social Security benefits, but to eliminate the state income tax on their pension benefits. No wonder nobody believes you now,
In the interest of moving on, are
Well,
you not willing to make a pledge?
I have to, listen, we are going to, this is my pledge, that we are going to get better tax treatment for our seniors and for all of our citizens. That's why I signed the legislation, argued for the legislation of a net neutral tax review. Tom is pretending that I'm not the person who proposed the exact treatment that he's talking about, and it's a little bizarre that he's doing that. But teachers know who did it. Retirees know who did it. The Teachers Retirement Organization, representing 16 retired teachers in this state, endorsed me because I did do that. They didn't endorse Tom Foley. They endorsed me. That's the reality of the situation.
Okay, let's go to a question from one of our News 8 viewers. This was submitted online at our website, WTNH.com. This question is from Dennis in New Haven, and it's for you, Governor Malloy. Quote, Governor Malloy, sir, why did the tax rebate you proposed not happen?
Because we didn't meet our revenue targets. It appeared that we wouldn't meet our revenue targets, and we didn't want to spend money that we didn't have, and we thought that putting money into the rainy day fund was the most important thing. We always said that. So let me go back to the situation that Nancy and I found when we were sworn into office. There was a $3.6 billion deficit. We asked for shared sacrifice, understanding that at 18% of total revenue, it was too large to tax our way out of, too large to cut our way out of, and we had to go back to our state employees and reach a new relationship. We did all of that. And as things moved forward, we went from having $0 in the rainy day fund to having $520 million in the rainy day fund. But what we have done is rolled back certain taxes already.
But one of the things that they teach you in management school almost from the day one is don't make any promises you can't keep.
Yep.
So why did you go out on a limb and say you were going to have a rebate?
Well, because it appeared that we were going to have a rather sizable additional funds come in that didn't materialize. And so it didn't happen. And we know why it didn't happen. People moved, wealthy people moved income from 1 year into the December of the prior year and paid taxes that year and not the following year. But you know, at least we made the proposal. At least we were prepared to and wanted to share that progress. But when it came to making a choice of rebuilding a rainy day fund that had been depleted by the prior administration or spending the money as a rebate, a decision was made not to do it that way.
Tom, I know you're just aching to say something. So.
Listen, the math in the budget isn't that complicated, and over a year ago I was saying there's not going to be a surplus in this year's budget, and the governor knew this too when he made the promise. So listen, the governor has come into a lot of communities and made promises in 2010 that he hasn't delivered on. I've been spending a lot of time in New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport. These communities are very upset with the governor because he promised to deliver a lot of the things to those communities and include, for example, a lot of minorities in his administration, which he has not done. And so they feel that they've gotten a raw deal, and that's why I'm getting a very warm reception in those communities and expect to do much better. We need to be more fair here in Connecticut. Governor Malloy has put a big tax on everybody that's hurt the economy. He hasn't brought jobs to communities like New Haven and Bridgeport and Hartford. He's paid billions in taxpayer money in corporate welfare for large, wealthy corporations to bring jobs to other communities, but not to the cities. We simply have to do more for the cities, and we need to spread the work among all the various communities in those cities. Governor, I'd really like to talk about how we're going to do that. You made a lot of promises you haven't delivered on, and you have a lot of excuses, but I'm not really hearing that people have much confidence in what you're saying about what you'll do in a second term. And you're talking about all this progress and let's keep going. You haven't even done what you had said you would do in 2010.
Well, I don't think that's correct, Tom, but let's start correcting a few things. If budgets are so simple, you should tell everyone the reality, and that is that we've had 4 balanced budgets and that we've rebuilt the rainy day fund that had been depleted. We did that while we saw the creation of 70,000 private sector jobs, many of those in places like Bridgeport, New Haven, Stamford, Hartford, many of our large cities. We're seeing now the most rapid job growth that we've seen in two generations, actually. So obviously it takes time to turn a state around when you have the largest per capita deficit. That's what was delivered, and we've straightened that out. But we're making sizable investments in education. I'm proud that, and we all should be, of the students in places like Bridgeport, New Haven, and Hartford who are now graduating. Hartford and New Haven has seen a 12% increase in graduation rate from high school. That's not just about one student. That's about intergenerational change, because that student, because they got their high school diploma, is more likely to have a child who'll get a high school diploma. In fact, more likely to have a child who'll get a college diploma. So making timely investments and appropriate investments to sustain growth is very important. Under Republican leadership in this state, we had no net job growth for 22 years. You supported every one of those governors. You raised money for every one of those governors. There was no net job growth. The decline in places like Bridgeport and Hartford and New Haven took place while the candidates that you supported for governor were in office, the people that you raised money for. There's a very different situation in Hartford right now, or Bridgeport. Bridgeport had a 20% reduction in crime during the time last year. And the murder rate is down 32%. Why? Because we made timely investments alongside of Bridgeport. Bridgeport is not going to make its full comeback if it has high crime. They know that, and that's why they appreciate the kinds of investments that we're making there. Hartford has seen a precipitous drop in crime. Hartford's not going to come back and attract all the jobs that left while governors that you supported were in office until it improves educational outcomes, 12% increase in graduation, and until it lowers crime at the lowest it's been in a long, long time in Hartford, and until it creates more downtown housing. There are 1,500 units of housing under construction right now in Hartford. No one thought that was humanly possible 3.5 years ago, Tom.
I hope Dennis understands why he didn't get his rebate. Do you want to respond to that? Or
I do,
quickly?
Because listen, Governor, this is your economy. You have been governor for 3.5 years, and to be blaming your predecessors for 1% growth, I think is irresponsible. I've been door knocking in Bridgeport. I want to tell you about a woman named Mary Beth, whose door I knocked on. I'm sure she was a Democrat. And she, I would say, was in her late 50s. And she told me a tale of woe that I'd like you to hear, because you obviously think nobody's having a hard time in Connecticut. She said she'd been out of work for 3.5 years. She'd collected 2 years of unemployment and has not been able to find a job, and she's actually stopped looking for a job. So she's not showing up in your unemployment number that you brag about as having come down. She's also not one of the 70,000 jobs that you say you've created. I said, well, how are you paying your bills? She was living in a house. And she said, well, my father left me some money, but it's going to run out, and I'm going to have to leave Connecticut. And I said, well, hold on, because change is coming. Now, what do you say to people like that? When you say, it's coming, we're making progress, what do you say to the people in Connecticut who've been waiting 3.5 years for you to perform, for you to deliver something to them, to solve the woe that people are feeling?
What I would say, Tom,
Short answer, go ahead.
What I would say, Tom, is I've looked at what you call a plan, and you have nothing in there for them, for that person. We have created tax incentives for investment in Bridgeport, Hartford, New Haven. We've created special zones. We're seeing jobs being attracted to those communities. We're working with hospitals and colleges in those communities to make sure that they're working. Tom,
it's not working.
It is, Tom. It is. It may
it's
not be
working for Mary Beth.
Oh, you know what, Tom? I didn't knock on that door. With
you
you,
didn't
I've
knock
knocked
on any doors.
Oh no, that's not true, Tom. In fact,
have you knocked on doors in Bridgeport? Where did you knock on doors in Bridgeport?
I haven't knocked on
Just
doors
give me a street
in
address.
Bridgeport. I have walked up and, Tom.
A neighborhood. How about a neighborhood?
Tom, I was in Bridgeport, as you know, yesterday.
Knocking
I've
on
been
doors?
in Bridgeport many days. I met people up and down streets and had the same conversations you've had.
So you weren't knocking on doors? Okay.
Tom, had the same conversations that you've had. And that's why the long-term and smart investments we're making in the future are so very, very important.
Let's move on to another viewer question, because I think we need to hear from some of the viewers. Well, I think we can tell who this guy is voting for from his question. This came at WTNH.com from Dave LaFletch in Lisbon. For Tom, Tell me why I should vote for you and not Joe Visconti. He seems to have integrity and tells us where he stands without wavering.
Well, Joe's a good guy. He's worked hard. He qualified to be on the ballot. He has views on certain issues that I don't think are the issues that matter to most of the voters in Connecticut about Connecticut's economic future. And so that's what I've been talking about, and that's what my plan is about. I think we need to provide tax relief to get the economy going. We need to get control over spending.
I'm quite certain that this, because I've heard from people, many of people like this guy, I'm quite certain that his point is Joe Visconti gives a direct answer concerning repeal of the gun law that was signed in the aftermath of Sandy Hook. That's what I think he was driving at. And that your answer is sort of, you know, well, if they present it to me, I'll sign it.
No, but he asked why should I vote for me?
Right.
And so I'm answering the question. And I'm going to hold spending flat for 2 years so we can get control over this chronic fiscal problem we have. Governor Malloy raised taxes $1.8 billion, but he's let spending go up by $3 billion. He squandered it, and he has no plan to reduce spending, so he's going to have to raise taxes again.
Right, but I'm trying to move. We've already talked about that for quite a bit.
Okay.
I'm trying to move to that to another topic here, to explain why people are attracted to Joe Visconti because of his absolute view about repealing that law, and yours is not quite so absolute. Could you address that? Because I think that's what he wants to know.
Well, what I've said is that if I'd been governor when Governor Malloy passed the gun bill, it would have been a very different bill. I would have focused more on mental health issues. I go to root causes. I'm a problem solver, so I go to solving the problem. So the root cause of that tragedy in Newtown was a mental health issue, and so I would have focused on that. And if the person who asked the question isn't satisfied with that, I'm disappointed because I think that actually Connecticut would have been a safer place. I don't think Connecticut's any safer now than it was before the Newtown tragedy as a result of the bill that Governor Malloy passed. I think it would have been safer if I'd been governor and I'd passed a different bill.
Well, that certainly wasn't an answer. I think I have to remind everybody that I actually debated Mr. Visconti when Tom wouldn't show up to a debate that he had been invited to, a debate that Tom had promised to show up to. He actually changed his plans, and instead of showing up and debating somebody who he just called a good guy, he actually went to another TV show and taped a Sunday broadcast. If these issues are important, then they're important to speak to all of the people about. And everyone knows what my position is on guns. I advocated for the passage of this legislation. I will never, ever, ever sign a repeal. Folks who want gun safety are supporting my candidacy quite widely. Tom has said that he'll repeal it. Mr. Visconti has been very pointed in saying that he would repeal it. Tom is trying to back away from his position by taking an NRA talking point about mental health. There was $8.5 million in the bill for mental health, Tom. You know that. Stop repeating things that you know aren't accurate. And Mr. Visconti, at least to his credit, is direct about this particular issue. When I debated Mr. Visconti, we didn't just talk about guns. We talked about the economy. We talked about other things. And quite frankly, he's a pretty stand-up guy. He's straightforward, as opposed to some of the gobbledygook we just heard.
All right, we're going to take a break and get to some more questions here. If you're just joining us, I'm Chief Political Correspondent Mark Davis. The candidates for governor are here, and some of your questions are coming up. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. I'm Chief Political Correspondent Mark Davis here with Governor Malloy and Republican Tom Foley, as well as Susan Haig from the Associated Press. You're joining us live for the final roundtable with the candidates for governor. You vote in less than 48 hours on Tuesday morning. All right. Oh, we don't have that? Okay, then we're going to move to another question from WTNH.com. Is that right? Okay, this is from Charles in Essex. Charles says, sapphire is a type of gemstone and the name of Dannel Malloy's boat. Odalisque is a type of female slave or concubine and the name of Tom Foley's boat. What made you choose these names for your vessels, and if you didn't choose the name, why have you not changed it?
Well, I don't have a boat anymore. I did have a boat that had the name Sapphire, and it was born with that name. and it cost money to change the name. You have to scrape the stuff off, and I wasn't about to do that. So I was more than happy to have Sapphire for a period of time.
So it was an inherited name.
It was an inherited name. If I had a boat named after a sex slave, I would have changed the name. The idea that one would run for governor of the state of Connecticut with a $5 million yacht registered in another country as opposed to our own state, and continue to carry on a name that represents a sex slave is really quite horrendous.
Well, aside from the name, you fault him for having a yacht. I mean, we have
No,
hundreds and thousands of people along the Connecticut shoreline who make their living servicing and selling yachts and motorboats and sailboats.
Not too many people have a $5 million yacht and don't pay any income taxes for 3 years in a row. And not too many people have a $5 million yacht that's registered in another country. And not too many people I know have a yacht that's named after a sex slave.
All right, well, let's let Tom answer the name of the boat and other related
The governor's
matters.
obviously not going for the boat owner's vote. And by the way,
I'm certainly not going for the sex slave vote
the
either.
governor was in arrears on his boat. It may have even been repossessed, but it sat in a yard in Stamford because he hadn't paid the yard bills for years, which he managed to pay shortly before the election in 2010. At least I pay my bills. Listen, Odalisque is a. I'm a great enjoyer of the arts and culture, and Odalisque are the names of many great paintings, including the masterwork by Ingres and a lot of. They were used as models by Matisse, and so it was named for that.
So it's a highbrow name.
Yeah, well, no, it's. I think it's a very nice name. But boats are usually have a female name associated with them. It's because the gender of boats historically was a she, and so many people name their boats after women. Or something feminine, and Odalisque really means a beautiful woman, a beautiful thing in the art world. It doesn't mean a sex slave. So.
Tom, you've asked me a question. Let me ask you one. You have a daughter. Do you think it's appropriate to have a boat named after a sex slave? Do you really think that's appropriate?
Do I think it's appropriate to have a boat named after something that artists like Matisse admired greatly and created the image of? Yes, absolutely.
But you know, this is interesting because this almost reflects exactly what this race is about. You see that term meaning something artsy, and you see it meaning something else. You see the state in trouble, and you think it's going well. So it all depends on how the individual feels. Let's go to Susan and get another question in here.
Good point.
Pardon me to even bring this up, but the Quinnipiac poll has shown that many voters really don't like either one of you. And I'm wondering, maybe is there something that you could tell voters, something about yourself personally, perhaps an interest that you have, a hobby or something that might make people relate to you more? Here's your opportunity.
You're asking me?
Yes.
A hobby I have. Well, I like a lot of sports. I ski, and I love moving through three-dimensional space. So ever since I was a young child, I dreamed about flying and moving through three-dimensional space. So I drive motorcycles, so I like motorcycles. I love fixing things, so I work on cars and motorcycles. I actually, my wife Leslie, if she can't find me in the house, she knows I'm downstairs probably working on the furnace or the air conditioning system. So that's some of the ways I spend my time, some of the hobbies I have.
You know, I think that some people know this and some people don't. I grew up with very severe learning disabilities and physical disabilities that took me years to overcome. I couldn't button a shirt or tie a shoe until I was in 5th grade. Maybe that explain some of the edges around my personality. It was tough growing up that way. I had the support of my mother and my dad, but my mother most particularly. And she helped me through those physical and dyslexic disabilities that I had. I wouldn't be here but for great teachers. I remember so well Mrs. Mitchell, my 4th grade teacher, the first teacher who really believed in me, that I could be successful, that I wasn't, as the term was then used in those days, mentally retarded. I remember so many of the teachers after that, and by the time I got to high school, I was starting to have some academic success. A university took a chance on me as the first person they ever admitted with a learning disability, and I graduated magna cum laude. I went on to law school and graduated from Boston College Law School. When I took the bar exam in New York and Massachusetts in 1980, I was the first person allowed to take the essay portion orally, because I have still, to this very day, have a very difficult time taking language and putting it into written form. I think sometimes people assume things about my personality that really relate to the set of disabilities that I was born with and worked very hard to overcome. I think maybe what I would share about that experience is I go to every school that teaches kids with learning disabilities, and I spend time with them when I'm invited to. This past year, I've spoken at 3 different leading institutions for educating children with learning disabilities. And I share my experiences about how hard it was to overcome that, how important the assistance of teachers and parents who loved me and believed in me was. I can't, you know, listen, I've been accused, rightfully, of having sharp elbows. But in part, it relates to some of the things that I had to grow up with and overcome and work through. And my mother said every day that we shared this world together, she said, "Dannel, you have an obligation to leave the world a better place for you having lived in it." I don't believe that's measured at the end of your life. I think it's measured every day, and I try every day to do that.
So we move on? Do you want to follow up on that?
I was wondering how you think people perceive you, and how you would, like what the governor just said, he thinks that people perceive him because of his personality.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Well, listen, I'm a very family-oriented person, so the people who know me know how important it is to be a good husband and to be a good parent. There's no higher priority I have than those 2 things, and I spend an awful lot of time being a good parent. I think the legacy that everybody leaves, the most important legacy everybody leaves who's been fortunate enough to have children, are their children, and making sure that you're passing on to the next generation something more and better than you had yourself. And so I'm very involved and invested in my children. I'm very proud that my children are doing very well. I have 3-year-old twins, as you know, and I also have a 24-year-old son who's doing well as well. So I care about people. I think this is a lot about values. People, when they're trying to assess whether or not they like somebody, it's their values. What are their priorities? What do they care about? So they want to know that people are generous. They want to know that people care about and invest in their families. They want to know that people are honest and trustworthy. And people who know me know those things about me. Now, it's a little hard for that to break through when the governor's spending millions of dollars trying to take on my character, which I think is unfortunate, because I think in politics, people should stick, first of all, to things that are true, and second of all, not to challenge somebody's character or motives, but to talk about issues that matter to people and things that people have actually done, like Governor Malloy's record, for example. So I think it's hard on television to sometimes have people get to know you, because there's so little time, and people oftentimes can't pick up the subtleties that would enable them to make an evaluation about, you know, how truthful are you, what are your priorities, how ethical are you. But people who know me well know all those things about me.
I really wonder if the negatives that you both are experiencing has nothing to do with whether or not you're nice guys, but because of the television commercials. Anyway, let's move on. Here at News 8, we always have your back. Our cameras hit the streets in recent weeks, all the time, as you know, to find out what people would like to ask the candidates. Lee here, listen carefully, has a question for both candidates.
You're talking about lowering taxes, which is fine. How are you going to do that? And again, just because you mystically say you're going to cut taxes, if that's the case, then you're losing money, and you have to make up the money somewhere. And how are you probably making it up then? Because I mean, don't tell me you're going to give me a fee, which is just another name for a tax.
Time from people. So You say you're going to cut taxes. You say we're going to do nothing but cut taxes in the second term. And Lee makes a very good point that if you're going to cut taxes, you're going to have less money coming in. How are you going to do that?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm going to hold spending flat. The governor's not made the commitment to hold spending flat, so he can't. He has to raise taxes to support an increase in spending, which is what he's planning. I'm going to hold spending flat for 2 years, and that way revenues with economic growth increase and will catch up. I'm not going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate welfare like the governor's been paying, so we'll save that money. I believe that by sitting down with all the healthcare providers in the state, we have the most expensive healthcare system in the state, that we can figure out a way to deliver healthcare services to people for less money. And the state is the largest consumer, $7.5 billion a year of healthcare services for Medicaid recipients, public employees, and retirees. So if we can reduce the cost of, and I'm not talking about changing anybody's benefits, but just if a heart attack at New Haven Hospital costs $100,000, let's figure out a way to make it only cost $95,000 and maybe actually increase the quality of care at the same time. Those are ways that we can save money so we can hold spending flat and we can afford the tax relief that I'm talking about that the Connecticut citizens need.
Governor, can you address Lee's points here?
Sure, I think Lee makes a very valid point, and that's why doing it as the economy grows is the way to do it. 70,000 jobs having been created in the state of Connecticut is a real growth factor, and it's showing up in the additional income that's coming into the state. It's already allowed us to roll back some taxes. As I said, the over-the-counter drug.
Yeah, at the end of more people paying taxes means
correct.
Right.
Growth in the economy makes a real difference. But let me just touch on this healthcare thing for a second because it was just brought up. My opponent opposed ACA. My opponent opposes
Affordable Care Act.
Affordable Care Act.
Obamacare.
Opposed bringing Medicaid to tens of thousands of individuals. So let's talk about what that's done for our state. It's actually saving us money as we sit here. Our actual cost per Medicaid enrollee is going down per person by 2.2% so far in year one. We have tens of thousands of people who are insured now, actually 280,000 people who are insured in the state of Connecticut who would not be insured if Tom Foley had been governor 4 years ago, because he ran for governor saying he would not institute ACA and he would not extend Medicaid. He was just like a lot of the other right-wing Republican governors who, in my opinion, in some senses are responsible for causing deaths by not bringing Medicaid to tens of thousands, and if not millions of people in the case of Texas, to their citizens. To stand by and watch people die because they didn't have access to health care makes no sense at all. You know, it's unbelievable that you would bring up the subject. I think it's exciting what we're seeing happen. People have mental health coverage that didn't have it before, something that you've said you support, but then when you could have supported it by supporting the ACA and supporting Medicaid, you refused to do so. Listen, I'm blessed. I have a great lieutenant governor. Nancy Wyman, when I came into office, I asked her to work on ACA, the implementation of it. We did it better than any other state in the nation. And we actually cut our uninsured rate in Connecticut in half in a 2-year period of time. That's remarkable. The only state right now with a lower uninsured rate than us is Massachusetts.
All right, let Tom.
First of all,
the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, I was never against increasing the eligibility for Medicaid. That never came up in 2010. And I support the goals of the Affordable Care Act. I support universal coverage, and I support eliminating exemptions for pre-existing conditions, for example. So the goals of affordable care I support, but the implementation and the additional costs that were added unnecessarily, I don't support. And the governor's being very disingenuous. He knows that health care premiums are about to go up 15 or 16% in Connecticut shortly after the election because of the Affordable Health Care Act.
But are they going up on Affordable Care Act people or on everybody?
Insurance premiums on everybody. And he talks about, here's a little Malloy math for you. He's saying we cut it in half. We had one of the lowest percentages of uninsured people in Connecticut. So the task
in the country, you mean?
In the country,
right.
Yeah. So the task of getting half of the uninsured enrolled was very small because we had so few uninsured. He mentions 220,000 people on the exchange. He spent $157 million of taxpayer money on the exchange, 1/4 of what the federal government spent on their exchange for 1% of the population. It should have been, it should have been unbelievably good. So, and all but about 60,000 of those 220,000 people were just signing up for who newly qualified for Medicaid. If the exchange hadn't been there, they could have just signed up the old way. So for $157 million, Governor, you only got 70,000 new uninsured people. I'm happy we got them, but you spent an awful lot of money doing that.
Just about everything Tom Foley just said is not true. I mean, that's the reality. First of all, 280,000 people have signed up. 47,000 women bought private insurance through the exchange just in the last year, who didn't have insurance the year before. And this week you gave an interview in which you were quoted as saying that you did not support Medicaid expansion, and you would not have done it. You can't have it both ways, Tom. Being governor, you get held to the things you actually say. You know, you have been against raising the minimum wage to $10.10. You have been against mandatory paid sick time, so allowing an employee to accumulate 1 hour of sick time for 40 hours worked. You're against that. You're against, and you said you will repeal the earned income tax credit, which is an idea that is a Republican idea to reward hard work. You're against the middle class, including when it comes to health care. And yes, we had done a good job, Nancy and I, in the first few years that we were governor and lieutenant governor, in getting people signed up to an extension that we implemented in the state of Connecticut. As a result, by the time the ACA opened up for its access sale, we had already cut the uninsured rate very substantially, but Nancy and I did that along with the legislature.
Oh, quick response, and
Sure.
we'll get to another viewer question.
So,
here.
Governor, you got an important job running the state. Why are you sitting around listening to interviews I did? What was the interview where I said I was against extending Medicaid?
You were quoted in several articles this week.
Whoa,
I
thought you said it was an
papers.
interview.
I think it was in the Mirror. I think it was in a couple of other papers.
You think you're accusing me of something, and you think?
Oh, no, Tom, I'm not accusing. I know that you said.
You can't
that,
cite which article it was?
Tom,
What article was it?
Tom, we'll
Because
get
I
it
didn't
for
say
you.
that.
But you did.
Let's move on here because this just segues beautifully here. Another question from a News 8 viewer. We talked to Maureen, who wants to know why the candidates have to play dirty. Listen.
I need to listen to the next debate to really see what they are. Hopefully they will each say what they're going to do, not what the other one did or didn't do. That's what it's all about, and I don't know why they have to sort of badmouth each other.
So actually, we got a lot of questions like that. Another one here, what is accomplished through negative campaigning? Who wants to start?
I'll start. Listen, people who have a lot of experience in politics say that this is one of the most negative races they've ever seen. And I regret that because I don't think it helps the citizens of Connecticut make an informed decision about who to vote for on Tuesday. I'm proud to say that I've insisted on everybody in my campaign that we always say things that are true and that we stick to the issues. So we've talked about Governor Malloy's record, and we've talked about what we think he will do if he's reelected, and we've talked about what I'll do if elected. Now, Governor Malloy has decided to go into my business career saying all kinds of things that aren't true. I'm very proud of my business career. As I said, every company that I've owned increased employment. We increased people's compensation and benefits, and he's trying to say something else. These are character attacks. I've not done any character attacks. Now, there are independent expenditures that are made by other people that I don't control and the governor doesn't control, who are also running negative ads, but I don't control it. But my campaign has stuck to the issues and stuck to the truth. But Governor Malloy cannot say that, and he's run almost exclusively a negative campaign. I haven't seen one positive ad. So if you want to stop negative advertising, what you should do is vote against those who run negative ads. And I think if people are upset and don't want to see this again, I hope they'll vote for me because I've stuck to the truth. I've tried to stick to the issues in Governor Malloy's record and things that matter to the state of Connecticut. And I don't think the governor can say that.
Governor?
Sure, I could say it. I think both of our records are fair game. You've said some pretty tough stuff about me over the last couple of years. That's your right. You have a freedom of speech right to do it, but to pretend that you haven't done it, I don't think is realistic. So let me just say what we're going to do. We want to enhance the job expansion tax credit in the state of Connecticut. We want to establish a Connecticut Corps to put urban youth back to work. We want to expand opportunities for minority contractors. We want to create new regional centers focused on job training. We want to create a state student loan tax deduction for $2,500 worth of interest on student loans. We want to have a program that will allow us to refinance student loans at a lower rate. We want to bolster the governor's scholarship program by $10 million additional so that students can go to school in-state less expensively. We want to continue to support local governments in fighting crime and continue the process of lowering crime in the state of Connecticut, as we have done. We have the lowest crime rate that we've had in 45
But why
years.
won't either one of you be honest with the viewers?
I'm being honest.
We all know that negative advertising works. That's why you use it. Isn't that true?
I think that's why people run negative ads. I think that's true.
And that's why your negatives are high, and that's why his negatives are high, because they work.
I think you made a point.
Yeah, okay. Well, listen.
Well, it also is the only thing you can do if you can't talk about your record and don't want to talk about what you're going to do if you get elected.
Well,
You have nowhere
presumably he's
else to
been in
go.
office for 4 years. People know what he's done, I guess. Anyway, we're rapidly running out of time, but both candidates will get a minute here to make their final pitch to undecided or decided voters at this point to vote for them on Tuesday. Now, Tom Foley won the coin toss, so he gets to go last and has the final word. Governor, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for being with us this morning, and I hope you had set your clock back so that you were right with us at the beginning. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be your governor. I've worked hard. You've worked hard. We were in a terrible place 3.5 years ago, and yet we've made unbelievable progress together. 70,000 private sector jobs have been created in the state of Connecticut. Crime is at a nearly all-time low. 32% reduction in murders in our state. Graduation rates going up, school achievement going up, investments in schools going up, things that you could not have done if you had a slash and burn mentality about state government. You know, there's not a single firefighter, a single policeman, a single teacher, a single para working in a school who's lost their jobs because we went down a road that Republican governors have taken states in every other state. Slash and burn. What we're doing instead is investing in our future, making sure that we have a transportation system that for the first time in a long time meets the needs of the people of Connecticut.
Thank you, Governor. Now, we get the final word for a minute from Republican candidate for Governor Tom Foley.
Are you happy with where Connecticut is today? I'm not. Governor Malloy put the largest tax increase on Connecticut citizens in Connecticut history. It slowed the economy. It's cost people jobs. We've had 1% growth in Connecticut in 3.5 years while the governor's been governor. Private sector wages have declined 10%. It's hurt families. It's unfair. It's hurt seniors. It's hurt people in our cities. We have such a great state. We have such great assets. We have such a great workforce with special skills. We have wonderful academic institutions. We're located in a great part of the country between New York and Boston. We should be doing much better, but we need different leadership. We need to reduce taxes to ease up on family budgets and get the economy going. We need to get control over spending. And we have to support job creators so we can get the economy going, increase jobs, and improve people's incomes, and get Connecticut back to where it was before Governor Malloy was elected. I hope to get your support on Tuesday.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you both for being with us. And Susan Haig from the Associated Press, thank you for being with us. Remember, if you missed the beginning of this or any part of it, you can catch up with it on our website anytime you want at WTNH.com. And be sure to join us Tuesday night starting at 9 for complete live election coverage on MyTV9, WCTX TV. And we'll be joined in the studio by our political contributor, former U.S. Senator Joe Lieberman, along with reports from the News 8 team in the field. Now, any major developments will be broadcast live on both WCTX and WTNH. I'd like to wish the best of luck to both of you candidates on Tuesday. I got to work with one of them for the next 4 years, so good luck, guys. And we'll be joining Good Morning America already in progress.